you're going to find our next guest to be a great resource for you. We're talking about insomnia. I think at some time or another we all deal with it and suffer with it. And we're going to talk about what is it and what you can do about it. I'm delighted to have with us today Michael Swartz. He's a licensed sleep technologist from the Rogue Valley Sleep Center here. And by the way, Michael, if people want to get a hold of you before we let you go, how do they do that? They're at the Sleep Center?
Yeah, Sleep Center.
Rogue Valley Sleep Center?
Sure, 774-5750.
Okay. Hey, thanks for being with us. I know you probably have heard all the one-liners, and a lot of people make fun of not getting sleep, but it's a serious problem, isn't it?
It is. In fact, insomnia specifically is thought to be probably the most common complaint heard in the primary care office.
Really?
Up there with pain and depression and things like that. Insomnia is right up there.
Is it, what is it? I mean,
insomnia
is it a pressure thing? I mean, is it because we're too stressed out, or is it chemical? What is it?
It can be any of those. Insomnia is basically described as trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. It's not a disease. It's something that tends to develop over time. Everyone has experienced insomnia from time to time, just short term, just stressed about something and you can't sleep. But over time, bad habits can be developed, and then it becomes a chronic problem.
Well, there's nothing like it. If you have a hard time getting to sleep or staying asleep, it kind of compounds itself. It just all of a sudden you're just worn out from it. Yeah,
it does. It's something that in the short term, sleeping pills can help, things like that. But really, in the long run, it's behavioral things that really have to be addressed.
All right, let's talk about that, because I was going to ask you about some aids, but I did notice something. Now, you can tell me, you're the pro here. I lost a few pounds. Mm-hmm. I sleep better. Is there any correlation?
Yeah, it could be that you may have some sleep apnea, perhaps, and the sleep apnea is something that is the trouble breathing and things like that at night. So it's something that if you lose a little bit of weight, usually the breathing improves. Okay.
So who is likely to develop insomnia?
Well, it's usually most the cohort that usually has it is elderly, people who kind of develop bad habits over time.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not, but it's not really, it's no respecter of person, is it? I mean, anybody can develop it.
Yeah, anybody can. It's something that, something triggers it usually, and then once the bad habits develop, it kind of perpetuates, and it's really something that once it gets going, it's usually, it takes looking at the factors that are keeping it going. That really is what has to be addressed.
Well, let's talk about it. I mean, somebody now who's developed it, and they realize that there's a pattern beginning to develop here. I'm falling asleep, but I'm not staying asleep, or I'm tossing and turning before I finally go to sleep, and I don't like taking pills. So what can we do? Where do we start to getting taken care of here?
Really what you want to do is look at the whole situation, what's going on with the patient, and there are things that the patient is doing that maybe they're associating their bedroom with stress and anxiety, and so those connections have to be kind of unlearned, if you will. There's some people that have simple things that they do. Well, they're relatively simple. They might be drinking too much coffee in the evening, and that's a long-term stimulant that affects their sleep. Sometimes people are taking naps at inappropriate times during the day. Late in the day, if you take a long nap, it's going to affect your nighttime sleep more than a short nap earlier in the day.
Right.
So these types of behaviors tend to keep insomnia going.
This might sound crazy, but what about not watching TV before you go to bed?
Yeah, and that's a big one. TV before bed is, it has a couple things. One is it's a light source, and light is a big factor when it comes to our sleep. We have parts of our brain that react to light levels. Right. Maybe you've heard of blue light is a big issue now.
Right.
TV and iPads, all these things, they're full spectrum light, and so they're going to have a lot of blue light in them, and that tends to keep your brain alert, keeping it thinking it's daytime, and you don't want that, at night when you're trying to fall asleep.
Is it true now you want a real dark room?
Absolutely, yeah. Ideally, like a cave is about the best place to
Really?
sleep. It's dark, quiet, cool. It should be comfortable, of course. A lot of people have TVs in their room. They have pets that are wandering around. They have light that creeps into the room, whether it's from street lights outside or morning light coming in. All of these things kind of just tend to disrupt our sleep.
Now, are there levels of sleep? I mean,
there are, yeah.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, we record that in the sleep lab, and what basically, to boil it down and make it real simple, is our brain waves. Our brain waves change when we sleep. They get real big and slow when we're in our deep sleep, and that happens early in the night, and then they tend to get a little smaller and faster in the second half of the night. A lot of that is associated with our dream sleep or our REM sleep in the second half of the night.
So the most restorative sleep is the first part?
Well, there's kind of two types of restoration. There's a physical restoration and I guess the mental restoration, if you will. The deep sleep in the first half of the night more associated with physical restoration, and the lighter sleep or the dream sleep that we have in the second half of the night is more associated with the mental clarity. They do studies and they deprive you of REM sleep and you don't think as well.
All right, at what point do you use aids or use chemicals?
They're really designed for short-term insomnia. So somebody has, a big thing coming up the next day, or they're stressed about something, kind of an acute situation. A sleeping pill is perfectly fine. Most doctors would be fine writing a prescription for that. But when insomnia persists, keeps going, it's month after month, it's a difficult thing, getting to sleep, staying asleep, that's when you want to look at the behaviors that are perpetuating it and try to really work on those.
Are there any natural remedies?
Nothing has been really scientifically proven.
A bunch of GABA?
Valerian root and passion flower, these kinds of things have all been, associated with helping sleep. But a lot of them, they tend to calm you down.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to put you to sleep.
Okay.
So,
but it does chill you out a little bit.
It kind of chills you out. Yeah.
All right, let's come back to like CPAP and those kinds of units. Are they helpful? Do they work?
Yeah, CPAP, continuous positive airway pressure, absolutely. For sleep apnea, when the upper airway is collapsing repetitively at night, a column of air pressure can support it and keep the airway open while you sleep. And that makes your sleep deeper and stabilizes your oxygen levels. And it's usually for kind of the moderate to severe category of sleep apnea.
So how do you test somebody to see if they're suffering from insomnia, other than the obvious, to see if they're not falling asleep? But I mean, are there things you do to test them?
For sleep apnea?
Yeah, well, either one. Or insomnia.
Yeah, and usually for insomnia, an overnight test is usually not required.
Okay. You just know that you're not getting to sleep.
Usually in a clinical interview by a sleep specialist, which we have at the sleep center, usually they can identify the insomnia problem, and if there's no suspicion of an organic sleep disorder like sleep apnea, then usually a couple sessions with me during the day, usually we can work out the behavioral strategies that work. For sleep apnea, it usually requires an overnight test in the sleep lab.
Do you recommend naps?
In certain situations, yes.
I love them.
Most people don't have enough time for a nap. But,
I can't do them, but I love them. Yeah.
But a typical patient who might benefit would be someone maybe who's retired and they are having trouble sleeping at night, and a short nap during the day can sometimes kind of take the pressure off the nighttime sleep, where they don't feel the stress that they have to get to bed at a certain time. If they take a 45-minute nap during the day or half an hour nap, just a little bit can take the edge off the sleepiness, get them through the day, and then still make their nighttime sleep reasonable.
So, Michael, what happens if we don't pay attention to insomnia? I mean, what could it lead to?
Well, there's a lot of studies that have been coming out recently that show that short sleep or poor sleep over time is associated with cardiovascular disease and things like that. Kind of a pre-diabetic condition can develop over time. So there are medical consequences for poor sleep in a chronic sense. Short term, we can withstand tremendous amounts of sleep deprivation and recover very quickly. Sleep is important, but I don't like to stress my patients out by telling them that too much, because then they put more pressure on themselves and there's more performance anxiety to actually fall asleep at night. So it's kind of this catch-22.
All right, Michael's with us, and he's with the Rogue Valley Sleep Center. And what's the number there in case people want to call you?
774-5750.
And is there a standard 6 hours a night, 5 hours a night, 8 hours a night? What are you trying to achieve?
Well, it's a good question. First of all, it varies during the year. Sleep requirement goes down in the summertime, goes up in the wintertime because of light levels. We're so affected by how much light is out there that it's thought that there's
so we do hibernate a little bit.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, there's a natural change. I've read where back in the 1870s, before the electric light was invented, people were sleeping probably 10 or 11 hours on average.
Wow.
And so, mostly in the winter, but even in the winter, people don't sleep that long here. So, how much sleep you need is kind of this squirrely question. And most doctors who know about sleep would tell you you need as much sleep as it takes to feel reasonably refreshed during the day, where you're not falling asleep at inappropriate times.
All right. All right, so again, if you want to get a hold of Michael, he's with the Rogue Valley Sleep Center. The number is 774-5750. And let me encourage you to take a look at it. He's a master's in biopsychology, and which I guess you can sit down and you can analyze a person and say, hey, what's going on in your life? You need to make some changes here.
Yeah, a lot of what I do is associated with the brain and behavior, and so that connection there lends itself well to helping people with insomnia.
Are we too stressed out?
Probably. Yeah, probably.
Really?
And we need to take a moment to just get our sleep in check. Sleep is the one thing that gets pushed to the back burner when stress happens. And stress it happens, it's life. So how we cope with it can affect our sleep.
When I get stressed out, I get real sleepy, and I just go take a nap and I feel good. That's how it affects me. Stress. I just, some people have another cup of coffee. I can't do that. Hey, thank you, Michael, for coming in. Again, the number is 774-5750 if you want to give Michael a call and let him take a look at you and get you on a good sleeping pattern. We'll be right back.